Wow.
Hey, oh, sorry about that. My bad. I was getting with it. Welcome, everybody. Rudy Nieto here, CEO of MapSign, and join with me a man that needs really no further introduction because y'all are all following him on TikTok is Russ Richardson from Russ Flips Whips. Welcome, Russ, and just a personal note, welcome your new child to the world. I think you just recently had a little one come along.
Yes. A baby girl named Teddy. She's beautiful. She's healthy. She's happy. It has been a major blessing in my life.
Great. That is awesome. Well, first thing you should do is make sure you got her identity protected so no fraudsters are starting to work on her synthetic profile. So a little pointer for you. For those of y'all that didn't know that OPP song, that was from like my high school days. Back then, we did not have Facebook, social media. I didn't have email. I didn't have a cell phone. We just had the dance moves apparently. And man, has it changed today. And so, for those of you that don't know, I was actually a car salesman way back in the day. And Russ and I have gone back and forth and talked a bit about like how selling cars is today, in his career in the past 5, 6 years versus mine back in the day. Like I didn't have CRM. I had like the people that were sold cars in 2001 would remember that like we organized it by month and we had little cards for every person we sold a car to, and that would remind us when to call them. So amazing how it's changed today because I've got somebody like Russ who has learned from the beginning, like he's been a social media native kind of salesperson almost. I mean, he got that idea to sell on social media, and I'm just like, wow, it's amazing, right? And so now here we are sitting in, and I've got Russ teaching me about how to sell cars. And one of the things we're all here collectively to teach the audience is we're going to talk about people term catfishing. It's evolved into a lot more things today, and unfortunately, for more insidious nature. So I think the agenda for the podcast broadcast today is we're going to talk through Russ's history of maybe his personal stories of how he has personally experienced fraud coming up through the industry, how we're working with dealers today to put ourselves out there and grab that extra opportunity in the social media arena, and then what are the things we can do to cure some of the risks, right? So, Russ, welcome. Tell me your story real quick. I think you started in 2019, but like take me through hey, here's why I should do this. I'm going to put myself out there, and then where maybe you started maybe running into some of these bad actor pressures that we're finding in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, you look, I started social media in 2019, but I started selling cars in 2017, and I started washing cars in 2015 at that exact same dealership. And it's actually the only job I ever really had. I worked at Dairy Queen for like 3 days, but working at this dealership was the only job I ever had. And I was selling cars in high school. And selling 8 cars a month just like isn't fun, and if like you are selling 8 cars a month, I don't know how you think that's fun or exciting. And growing up, relatively poor, and no one in my family was going to buy a Lincoln. I didn't have anyone that was going to like send me all these people to come buy brand new Lincolns. It was like, how do I get these people that are kind of in this classification of upper to middle class that is not where I come from? How do I get them to know me, like me, and trust me? And I'll never forget a gentleman named Tom Deary, good salesperson, working at Beyond. He was a 20-car guy without trying, selling a lot of Lincolns. I asked him how he did it, and he said, if you just work here long enough, eventually it'll happen. And I'm like,
ouch.
Yeah, not a good answer. Like, I don't want to be 58 and, I'm like, that's a long ways away. And I'm like, there got to be a better way. And I just started making videos, and, the rest is history. And, that just led to the explosion, and it didn't happen overnight. It never happens overnight, but it led to the inevitable. What people see is the explosion of a brand that was actually almost 7 years in the making. This guy came out of nowhere, and it's like, go watch my first YouTube video. I said 50 times in a 7-minute time frame, verifiably. I actually just counted the other day how many times I said in that video. So I'm making these videos, I'm generating leads, I'm selling cars, and it goes from 8 cars, 10 cars, 12 cars, 15 cars, and, break every record at the store, selling more new Lincolns in a month than some dealers actually sell in a year, which is pretty cool because there are some new Lincoln dealers out there that are like, Ford, and they just happen to have a Lincoln dealership. Yeah. And they sell like 12 new Lincolns, like one a month.
Yeah.
And made a name for myself. And, I get into training thing that, people ask me like why I did it. Because I had more people asking me to do it than I knew what to even do with. So many people were asking me to come train, and it wasn't really even something I did. But what's interesting, and kind of why I've partnered with MavSign, and we can dive into this, is like what MavSign does is kind of picks up where I leave off in terms of what I do. I'm teaching you how to generate leads in your local market. Of course, everybody wants that. But if you're selling Lincolns like I am, you have cars on your lot that are 100, 200 days old, anyone that raises their hand and says, I want to do business and buy that, you'll take them. So, not only are we generating business locally, we're generating business across the country. And that is a game that, at Beyond Lincoln, we just weren't familiar with. And there were certainly some trials and tribulations. If there's finance managers on here, what are you going to do when a guy like Russ brings 12 out-of-state leases to you in one day? Like you're like, well, what? We do 5 leases a month. Russ has 12 in 12 different states. And it's like, who are these people? How do they find us? Obviously through my social. How do we know they're real? And to your earlier question, it's like we did run into that. And I remember a story very clearly. There was this one guy, and everything about him was just like sketchy, blurry photos, was taking forever to send some documents, didn't want to, was like, what do you need my driver's license for? He just wanted to send like an ID. And he was saying in his state, all you needed was an ID, which is valid. And I remember, it's like, we're a small store. So like everybody's in the know. Think, if you're not a small store, you're doing 500 units, we're originally doing 50. Now we're doing 80 because I'm moving the needle. But like, what happens when you're doing 500 deals? The GM, the owner's not involved in every deal. Biondi, Mr. Biondi knows when every car is getting sold. I remember him getting involved and him being like, this just seems weird. There's something off here. He called the guy, didn't like it, wanted the guy to send him driver's license and verification, almost like we were the bank at this point. Like, I want proof of residency. I want utility bills. I want this. Like, everything about this guy just seems off. Too good to be true. And after Mr. Biondi had spoken to him and kind of requested this slew of things, never heard from the guy. So,
right. Yeah.
It's like, but how do you can't scale out Mr. Biondi's intuition. Russ, he got a buyer. He wants to sell a car. He don't care if he's real or not. So it's like, sell that car.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's okay to recognize that there is a obvious commission bias. Like if getting an ID passed is the only thing that has to happen between me and making a 5-pounder, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna find a way to pass that bad boy. I mean, that's what we do as salespeople, right? We're gonna try to find a way to get that consumer into that car. Period. End of story. That's how we make money, And so,
and if your car sales guys aren't doing that, they're not hungry enough.
True.
Just keep that in mind. Like, if your car sales guy isn't looking for a reason to do every deal possible, like, tangent alert, but I got to say, I had a sales guy, someone from real estate wanted to sign up for my training. And I've been very clear that, like, our ICP is the car industry. I don't want to evolve. I think it'll be a headache. And he's like, dude, I got this guy on the phone. He's begging to sign up. And I'm like, I love your ambition. I love that you convinced him. But the answer is just no. It's not what we do. But I'm like, I love that this guy's like wants to get the sale, tells me my team's hungry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for those of you that are watching, if you've sold cars before and you haven't had to go like with the tow truck driver to go get a car back, that's an experience worth doing in your career. I had to do it once on a deal that I sold, and I could have probably taken more precautions. Now, full disclosure, I think my job was harder selling cars. I had to sell like standalone Dodge. So just FYI, selling Intrepid.
Rudy, we did the fact check. In 2001, Dodge sold 700,000 cars. And in 2024, my best year, Lincoln sold 98,000 cars.
All right, fair. But you had better demos at least.
Yeah. But it's funny to your story, about repoing the car. Nobody ever talks about what you do when you get the car back to your lot. Most of the times you don't get both keys. So now you have to box the car in with 4 other cars because you're afraid that person's going to just come get it back. If you really think like, and we had to do that like twice.
Yeah.
At a Lincoln store, you're not getting lower end people that, have bad credit usually. But I remember one guy just lied about where he worked and then it was just a complete lie. Like, had good enough credit, and it required I forget the whole story. I was relatively new, but I remember us repoing the car and then boxing it in at night with like 4 other cars.
Yeah. Yeah, there could be a whole Fraudcast on repo. I think probably on a future Fraudcast we'll have some repo guys come with us. Like actually, if you can get to where it's repo, that's actually a win in fraud, because I mean half the time the car's on a cargo ship by the time we figure it out, right? So just real quick, we have a bunch of folks viewing, and I'm seeing some cool comments. I think we had our first pop quiz question for the audience. We're going to put that on screen in a minute. And if everybody takes a minute to review, go in the comments and put your answers. We'll be collecting these and sharing these back out with the audience. So just kind of while we're on the topic, what percentage of all internet traffic into dealerships is estimated to be fraudulent each year? And I won't hold.
I don't know the answers, but can I participate?
You're welcome to participate. You're welcome to participate. So
my gut says B, but I'm usually not good with going with my gut, so I'm going to say C.
So like B might be the Lincoln answer, maybe, but then you add in some of the other ones, right?
Yeah, like at Lincoln, it's B. Nationwide, it's C.
Add in some of the used cars, right? Yeah, you could do it by OEM. So yeah, go in the comments, put your answers. I'd love to see, across the chasm, like what everybody's thinking around fraudulent internet traffic. Now, to be fair, it could be bots in addition to, directly like in-person fraudulent agents. But curious to see what everybody thinks. So just another second. And then put your comments out there. Looks like we're getting some in there. I see some A's. I see some B's. I see some Tony Tops. All right, so the correct answer is C, 25 to 40%, right? So now 25 to 40% is still a range, it could be higher than that based off the market. So for those of you that don't know, there's certain markets that have much higher rates. So, unless you're doing it every day, like Russ said, he's been doing it 7 years. So he's been doing enough social media and sales over social media to understand the trends and the tendencies, right? Same like with Maverick, we kind of understand the remote game because we've been doing it 18 years. We've got the scars. So I just give you an example, like, if I see somebody that's buying a car from somewhere else in the country and wanting to take delivery in El Paso, probably a red flag, right? Miami's a hot spot. Illinois is a hot spot. Obviously, anything near a port's a hot spot. There's hot spots based off of state legal rules. Like, for example, the state of Illinois is terrible for fraud because of how loose they are on prosecuting people who commit fraud. So just you got to know it. And so it's a dangerous game if you're not being careful and you don't have the right partners. So, okay. So Russ, talk to us about what you're doing today with helping get dealers comfortable. Like, I think getting out on social, like I'm doing this, I've never done this before for the past couple of years. So thanks to you and Freddie Media, I've gotten comfortable putting myself out there. My daughter's furious with me. She says I messed up her algorithms apparently, but what are the ways that you're getting dealers, before you even expose yourself, you got to put yourself out there and expose yourself to more fraud. Like, how are you doing that to get them comfortable with that way of thinking in auto today?
Yeah, I think every dealership knows that their best customer is a referral or a repeat, and I don't think anyone would argue that. Right. And it's like, how do you get more referrals? How do you get more repeats? It's by staying top of mind awareness. How do you say top of mind awareness? Is through marketing. Well, you can't market to people every day until you discover how to do social media properly. You can't text people every day. You can't email people every day. You can't put billboards on every corner. You can't buy the ad space. If you have a budget big enough for that, I think you're throwing the money away anyways. And you don't want to have to buy your customer back through third-party leads. Like, that would kind of stink. Like a repeat customer comes to you through a third party. That just says you didn't do a good job to make them even think of you up front. But what if there was a way where you could remind people every day who you were, what you did, and where you did it? And that is social media. And there is no other way to possibly do that other than an in-person style, like you're the mayor. And it's like, even that isn't scalable. So how do you remind people every day who you are, what you do, where you do it? That's through social media. That's by making entertaining, educational, thought leadership, day in the life videos. And people don't have to watch the video every day. Maybe they scroll past you, but they saw Rudy's face and they know Rudy Mav sign, they know Mav sign fraud. And then they've seen you for 3 months straight. They're in their meeting talking about this thing. And one guy goes, I've been seeing this Rudy guy all over LinkedIn. Maybe we should give Mav sign. Boom. They didn't Google it. They didn't chat GPT it. They didn't call their uncle on how they should fix this problem. They know it. Same with car sales. I want people to associate, when I was doing it, car with me. And it's the same thing. And this is scalable. We've seen this across. I had a guy, his first month doing social media, first 6 weeks actually, sold 32 cars from TikTok his first month. He already knew the people. He obviously helped a bunch of people outside of his local market as well. But he's just reminding people every day who he is, what he does. And it's the ultimate form of follow-up. Is a huge outcome, is the follow-up, the lead generation. But most importantly, and I was just presenting to a dealer group, shout out Duval Ford, Duval, as they say down there. I just said, Will, their GM, my first YouTube video, and I chopped it up. I just chopped it up of all of the ums and I sent him me saying 50 times to show his team, like, hey, Russ didn't just come out the gate as an all-star. So what if the only outcome for your team doing social media was they actually just became more confident? If you have salespeople on your team and they can't get on camera and do a podcast or do a 2-minute walk around, they can't do that on camera. How do they sound with a customer for 2 hours? They probably sound horrible. And that is a direct reflection of you and your dealership and your training. And so many people don't realize how bad their people actually sound. I call it the silent hands in pocket walk around. Well, what were you looking for? Well, what did you, it's just terrible.
Demo drive?
Yeah, it's just terrible. So social media, the confidence boost that all of my students have seen, and people that haven't trained with me but just do it anyways, would tell you the same thing. Man, I'm just so comfortable in my own skin. And I think, Rudy, I wouldn't say I directly trained you through our program, but, idea bouncing and encouragement. I think you probably always been a confident guy, but I think your first podcast till today is totally different.
Yeah. No, I'm getting better. I mean, hopefully I should keep doing this. It sounds like, we've got more people viewing, and, I did want to call out some viewers really quick. I see Isaiah Seam. Thank you for using MapSign for the past 16 years. So he's obviously watching us today and watching our progression and all the different things we're doing to fight fraud. So thank you to all of the folks who are MapSign customers following along here. I would encourage anybody in the comments, if you've got a real fraud story that's going on right now that you need help with, and you want me to have our fraud team go help you get involved with, happy to do that. If you've got questions for Russ on anything that you're doing out there, or concerns that you have, or maybe that your dealer has, and like, hey, how do I help my dealer get comfortable with this? Please share that in the comments, and we'll either follow up on this Fraudcast, or we'll follow up directly thereafter. So again, thank you, Zaya, and thank you for y'all that are viewing. So okay, real quick, I've got another one. And I think this is probably, I think everybody should get this one right, but if you got it wrong, we have a problem at this point. Our next question is, which fraud category has grown fastest due to social media use? So we agree.
Male fraud.
No, female fraud. Oh, I'm sorry, different kind of male. Got it. Yeah. So which category has grown fastest due to social media use? And actually, they have all happened in some capacity due to social media, surprisingly. But there is a correct answer here. And I can, if you're curious about how ATM fraud and mail fraud and credit card skimming can happen from social media use, reach out. I can give you some of the tactics they're using, but there's a lot of AI involved, and a lot of spoofing involved, and bots involved in getting information from people. So I like Tony's like mail. It could be mail, 100% mail. Actually, the correct answer is impersonation and social engineering fraud. I think I've used the term catfishing in the past. That's kind of what old people remember is the way to use social media to pretend you're somebody you're not. And so I think so for those of you that guessed A, you are correct. And to understand why that can happen, the difference is when you go post on social media and you put content on yourself and video live, what then happens is, the negative effect of that is the fraudsters can then, download the video, record it, and start actually curating their own AI filter of you and how you communicate. Synthetic voice has probably been around the longest. And so, that can be used against you. And so it makes it harder downstream, like once you put yourself out there and there's enough content. I mean, the stats I've heard, if y'all recall, they stole Marco Rubio's voice and created a synthetic version, and he ran the government for a full morning sometime last year. And where it's going to get to, that's go look it up, Marco Rubio deepfake. and it's out there. And I think there's people on this call that have had a story of where if somebody got the dealer's voice on the phone and recorded it, they could then create a synthetic voice and call the porter and say, hey, this is so-and-so dealer. I need you to have the keys and give it to that person at 11 o'clock. And I'm hearing that story almost weekly. So there's lots of ways that the fraudsters can use social media, not only to pretend they're somebody they're not, but they also can use the real authentic social media content that people are really producing. And then if they wanted to try to create a deepfake AI identity to steal a car. So, Russ, I think that's another area that I suspect if it hasn't hit yet, it's coming. And I mean, I think all the GPTs out, I call them all GPTs, all the AI things, what is it? Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, there's a bunch of them. I'm not sure what everybody's using, but apparently they all have some kind of way to do it. I'm a little moderately terrified of it. I mean, Russ, that's why we insist on having the person at the end with the thumbprint, because you got to verify humanity at the end, not just identity.
Yeah.
So I see a comment below. This is a great one from Zaya. Look out for cashier check fraud, a huge thing. Friend had one here at the store where funds were stolen out someone else's account and had to repo the car back. So man, cashier check fraud, how would that work, Russ? Just you're selling the car, nobody verified the cash. I'm guessing by the time they sent the docs back with the FedEx, nobody had actually verified the cashier's check, right? And then at that point, it's too late. They don't, they have to go find the car.
This is, you can fact check me on this, but I believe cashier's checks are faked more than personal checks. So I never understood why dealers demanded cashier's checks if they're not going to verify proof of funds. What is the point of requiring people to get cashier's checks if they're literally faked more? There's more fraud with cashier's checks than personal checks.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, look, the reality is there is verification software out there. I mean, besides just identity, there's check verification software out there. So I would say that should be a red flag if you're taking a cashier's check and not verifying it. It looks like our friend Zaya is going for Maverick Salesman of the Month here with his comments. It's absolutely right. On AI and some of the voice overrides, and ultimately, unfairly, dealerships are putting all this on the F&I manager, right? You put it on your F&I manager when you were selling. So I'm going to ask you for some best practices in a minute, Russ, and we're going to talk about what are some best practice ways to help F&I from a salesperson's perspective. Hey, we're throwing them all this additional risk, right? So think about that for a minute. I got one last survey question. And this one, I'm not sure everybody's going to get right. So it's getting ready to pop up on when we should send the car, I believe. Here we go. Okay, so when you're selling a car through social media, when should the vehicle be shipped? I bet you I'm going to get different opinions and answers, right? And it's okay. A, after the buyer signs purchase agreement. B, after the deal is verbally confirmed. C, after the finance contract is fully funded. D, after collecting the deposit, or E, none of the above. So I think everybody needs to think about that one for a minute. There may be a trick. So what do you think, Russ? Okay. Russ, you can give a salesperson answer and you can give a finance manager answer. How about that?
I'll give a few answers. Salesperson answer B. Gut says C. And my ability to be a naturally good guesser says E, because none of the others had none of the above. So the fact that this says none of the above leads me to B, E.
That's very good. You could be basically a forensic accountant at this point. So actually the answer is E. And the reason I say that is because, even though the finance, C is probably the correct answer, for the most part, if you had your proper red flags in place. But what we find most of the times is that most dealers don't realize in their lending agreements that if they fund a deal and then they find out later, it may not even be a first payment default, right? Like most of these synthetic identity frauds, they'll pay several payments and then take the car. But if they find out that you didn't follow red flag protocols and actually properly verify ID, which happens a ton on offsites, you're eating that deal. You're on full recourse. So the reality is, if you haven't completely vetted and verified that consumer, I wouldn't, the finance contract cashing really doesn't matter. They can still come back to you and take money away if they can say, hey, this was a fraud and you didn't do your job. And that's just the nature of the way the lending agreements work. Now, I would say if you have a process and you're following it, then you can feel confident that C is the correct answer. So there's two right answers, it's C and E, but it depends on your level of verification and how confident are you. So yeah, Zaya likes my joke. I'm cracking some jokes now. This is good. So hopefully everybody understands that. If you have questions about that, by the way, please feel free to follow up. We can give you, we've got a guideline on all the different ways that we recommend you follow red flags. There's obviously state-specific guidelines, and we can send you other tutorials that can educate you more on that. So, all right, Russ. So I gave it to you. Like, what are some things that you think we should be doing if we're trying to get out there and get on the edge and sell on social media and sell more cars? Like, what are ways that we could be helping F&I, with this? Because it's all falling on them. It sounds great to be the salesperson in this scenario. It's like, here you go, man, get my deal done. Like, this is all your problem now.
Yeah, I think the first thing you would do is make sure you're just packing every payment $200 a month.
Well, that's a very good. I mean, you're going to make a lot of friends with finance managers there, right?
Because I think when you do that, there's just room for mistakes.
Fair.
No, in all seriousness, and I think there's levels to this. I think a seasoned veteran car salesperson, I have people I work with that are selling cars all over the country due to their social media presence, and they can just, I don't want to say you should ever leave it up to your gut. That is not the way to do this. You should have verification processes. But before it even makes it to the F&I guy, a seasoned veteran should be able to vet people, should be able to vet out a lot of you should be able to weed out a lot of the fakers. Now, of course, like you said, it's getting harder to do that. And a lot of the stuff that I actually love to talk about in my training is FaceTime calls. Like, you should be FaceTiming these people. Like, and that's not even to like in my brain, that's not necessarily to verify who people are, but that's actually just to get to know people better. Like, Rudy, imagine our relationship if you called me on the phone every night for 30 minutes or if we FaceTimed every night for 30 minutes. It's just more intimate. And I think you'd actually raise your closing percentages for any offsite deals if you just FaceTime people. And then I use the term generically FaceTime, WhatsApp call, Snapchat call. I know there's some CRMs that are offering some form of live video call, but really a video call. And then you kind of get to see who people are too.
Right.
And when people are hesitant to get on a video call, it's like, okay, are they really insecure? Are they really busy? Or is this a fraudster? Is this somebody? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but there's very little at scale ways to fake like a FaceTime.
It could be done. It's the filtering is getting there. But it's you think about it, like, if you're the one initiating it and the consumer's not the one telling you when they, like, if they're in control of the environment, like, okay, yes, I'll FaceTime you at this time, right? Well, then that, and if they're saying, hey, we'll do it in 2 hours,
yeah,
right?
And it has to be on this weird software, like it can't, yeah.
So yeah, like, you still need to control, I kind of liken it to, kind of like an F&I manager saying, hey, like, this is still my F&I office, whether it's virtual or not. Like, so you still need to control that transaction. So I think FaceTime is great. I think the more questions you can ask and the more, KYC that you can do, I mean, all of that, it's all verification. And, ultimately where we try to help dealers is to say, listen, you don't have to have anything. You could go sell a car with pen and paper and a telephone. But, with all this technology, like, you're meeting consumer expectations, and you can use the technology to prevent, what if you miss something? There's 100 things you have to do to sell a car. If you miss one of them, you might lose your butt.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's important, Rudy, dealerships, like you're crazy, I think, if you're relying on your sales staff to make sure that you're not getting defrauded. That seems like a terrible plan. Like, if you're an owner or a GM out there and you're like, what's your defense against fraud? Our sales team, they're well trained. Look, man, if I think this deal's going to go through, I'm going to push my instincts aside and sell the car. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, and I think we kind of talked about that earlier. And F&I too. I mean, yeah, it's their job, but salespeople are and always will be following the money. So you got a sales guy who got a great deal on, it's a fraud guy, for example. Great deal, no negotiation, too good to be true. F&I gets involved. He's buying everything. You know what I mean? Like, that is, mistakes happen because people get greedy.
Right.
And, I think any of the best people in the industry could fall trap to that. And depending on the volume you're doing, to you, it could just be another deal. You know what I mean? Oh man, this is the 10th one this month that's gone this way. It's not abnormal for somebody to walk or buy a car from your dealership and pay all the money. I think margins are getting slimmed down. Of course, people are negotiating and using information to get better deals. But to say somebody wants to come in, pay all the money, buy all the back end, I mean, hopefully your dealership is doing quite a few of those a month still.
Yeah.
And so I don't think most people would even bat an eye at oh, this is a great deal.
Yeah, I mean, Russ, we haven't even talked about the disruptors out there, right? Like, I mean, you look at a Carvana, and you can debate that Amazon's trying to play nice, but we'll see if that's a wolf in sheep's clothes at this point. But like, I would assume, you're probably starting to see that consumers that's more becoming the expectation. Like, well, what do you mean we can't work together this way, right? So,
yeah,
how have you seen that change in the past several years?
Yeah, I mean, so when I'm talking to a dealer about my training, like one of the first questions I ask is like, what is your appetite for like out of state and remote sales? Because inevitably, I'm in Pittsburgh. Well, there were people in Alabama who really liked me and were like, hey, my Lincoln dealer sucks. I hate them. They don't know anything about the cars. They're greedy. They're marking them up. It's like an afterthought, and I would love to do business with you. And it's like, do I make the car so cheap that they're willing to fly or drive to me? Because that's option one. Do I convince them to just overpay, or do I give them like, hey, we can do this remotely? And we did a bunch of remote deals, and you have to be willing and ready to do that. I think, that doesn't have to be the end all be all strategy for social media, but like, are you prepared and ready for that? And no one prepared me for that, because when I was selling cars, it was like, when can you come in? And I remember going to my manager to get numbers for like literally like the first time ever. I'm probably like 19 and a half. I'm starting to get some social media customers. We were like, when can you come in, dealer? Not numbers over the phone. And he's like, well, when can they come in? I'm like, yeah, I don't remember where they were, but it's like, yeah, they're in Florida. And they found me on social. Like they're not just coming in. And I remember there being like this power struggle for like almost 6 months. Like one of my GM, younger, progressive, was like, dude, give them a number. I don't care. What's it matter? If they shop us, great. If they want to do business with Russ because they found them on social, whatever. And if they take the numbers and shop, whatever. I mean, what do we have to lose? It's not like we're so busy we can't start giving people numbers. And, there were people who shopped and there were people who just laid down. The one manager was like not about doing the numbers over the phone. He was, I don't know if you know what APB car sales is, but he was APB. He was Joe Verdi. I mean, he was old school as it could come. And he was like, get them in and find out if they want a 2-door or a 4-door, a stick shift and an automatic. And I'm like, bro, like they just want to buy a car from me and they don't live here and they trust me because they've seen me on social media. And we eventually did start going to a pretty, I think option one is always like, when can you come in? But it's like, okay, you're in Florida. We got to do some legwork. Even if you are willing to come in, there's some things that need done before you come in. And I think any dealership that isn't willing to do that, I think there's two things. Option one, you are so busy, you don't need to do that. And if that's you, great. I think then you should be thinking, well, what if I just scale a little more and I can actually just have like a team that's willing to do that? Or two, you're so insecure. And this is where dealers like, you're not good at sales. You're good at manipulating people. If you're only making money because you're tricking people and you're getting them in on false premises and making money that they don't even realize what's going on, you're not good at sales. You're good at manipulation. I got people to pay more money for Lincolns in our local markets, not by tricking them, but by convincing them it would be a better experience and worth buying from me. That is good salesmanship. And I think that's lost. I think there's confusion in the automotive space that there's a difference between tricking people to pay more money or strong-arming them, or actually just convincing them that it is worth spending more to do business with you.
Yeah, go look at the stock reports on Carvana. Like they're not selling their car. People think they sell their cars cheap. They're not the best deal in the market, but like what certain people would rather do that and deal with a computer than deal with a human just based off of some prior experience that they had, right? So what I love hearing is that like really what you're doing on social media, provided you've got the right protections in place, is you're really differentiating yourself to say, yes, you can do it this way. And by the way, you can actually do it with a real human in the process. So I think that's a great unlock that I would encourage everybody to think about. Is I think we're all in sales meetings in 20 groups saying, what do we do about these disruptors, right? Well, here's an option. I mean, we can be a people business and we can be a sell everywhere business and do it at the same time. And that's what you're teaching dealers how to do. I wanted to hit a couple of comments. So Tony Preston, yep, I think he had one that lost the Range Rover. Bank made him eat it due to fraud. So sorry to hear that, Tony. Wish we could have been there to help you, and happy to discuss that if that's something you'd like. Zaya brings up an interesting point. Like a lot of dealers during COVID, and I bought some cars during COVID as part of my learning process to see what dealers were willing to do or not. And there's a couple of people saying, hey, I won't buy a car from a dealership who refuses to negotiate remotely. I think I went to 10 dealers looking for a BMW. And I think I had one or two that maybe would work remotely and ship the car. And so they got the business. It wasn't really about the price. It was just I'm looking for a certain kind of car. I'm probably not going to find it exactly the way I want locally. So I'm just going to go call all the ones that might have one, and what percentage actually have it. So I think by not putting yourself out there, you are limiting your addressable market. So Zaya brings up interesting on e-sign and electronic contracting. Most people don't necessarily know the differentiation between an e-form, an e-signature, and an e-contract. And I think a lot of times during COVID, we're like, oh, well, they can't come in, so we'll DocuSign it. I'm like, well, how the hell do you prevent fraud with a DocuSign if the fraudster's the one controlling the two-factor authentication, right? There's a whole different level. So I would encourage anybody that feels secure with e-sign as a standalone measure of verification, if you're selling on social media, to give us a call or call Russ and double click on that.
By the way, if you're watching this, make sure you give Rudy at MavSign a big follow on all social media platforms. He is pumping out good content, and this is something that should be on everyone's radar. Maybe your store's not doing a lot of out-of-state deals right now, and you're like, okay, maybe this isn't the most important thing, but maybe 6 months from now you start to adopt a social media thing, or maybe you start doing some digital retailing, and then you're doing, go from doing one deal a month to 10. Well, this is absolutely something you should be considering. And like I mentioned, you don't want to have to Google who does this. You don't want to have to look it up. You don't want to call your friend that probably has a bad process. You just work with the best. And that's why you follow people. So when you're ready to do business with them, you already know who it is.
No, I appreciate that, Russ. Look, we feel like fraud's the target, and we've got we like to think we do something unique to help with that. So we've been doing it 18 years. So look, we're coming up on time. It's we're 40 minutes in, a little over. Been a great conversation. I wanted to leave it open for anybody attending. If you've got specific questions for Russ on things that he's doing or techniques that he's using to maybe help head off some frauds or provide further verification. We talked about FaceTime. We talked about having a proper turnover to F&I. One thing that we didn't talk about, Russ, and this is more of a question for me, one of the things F&I managers don't like about remotes historically is they feel like they don't get a quality at bat, right? It's more just they almost look at it like an outside finance deal, just crap. All right, I'm just doing paperwork, right? So tell me about do you feel like that's how it should be, or are they missing the boat on F&I opportunity?
They're just weak, but no, not really. They're just not trained on how to do it. At our dealership, were there some really small deals that our F&I guy hated that I made because it was to sell a new Lincoln, out of market, outside financing. It was all price. The guy liked me, all price. I'm not going to sit here and say, no, I'm not a liar. I never have been, never will be. But of some of our biggest lay down sticker navigator deals, making all the money on the lease rate in the back, bought every product off a phone call, 20 grand round trip, been a deal where the guy never came in. Yeah. And it's absolutely incredible. And, we didn't really have a process around it. So it's if you actually start to process around this new way of doing business, okay, most dealers have a process for when a customer walks in the door. Great. I would say 90% of dealers do not have a legitimate process for selling cars when they don't walk in the store. A legit, if everybody in the building collapsed and didn't make it in the next day and you had to plug in people, follow the playbook, they don't have that.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is like dealers have a deal room to consummate transactions in their dealership. Like they call it, it's called the box. The challenge is virtually like where is the virtual deal room where all this stuff gets put together, right? I mean, you have to do all these things, but you don't have that captive audience. And so I think a lot of times we end up just shortcutting and saying, fine, we'll just get the paperwork. And, you might get a phone call and say, hey, do you want a warranty? But there's
Yeah.
not like that engaged video call.
Yeah. It should be like it should be a scheduled delivery like you normally would for anybody that's scheduling to pick up a car. And, look, I always claim, I don't teach people how to do things outside of my niche, which is social media lead generation, brand building. But I think where I stop and really don't want to go any deeper unless people personally ask my opinion is exactly where MapSign picks up. Russ teach you how to build a brand. Russ teach you how to get people to reach out. Russ teach you how to get them in the DMs. And then after that, it's like, what's next? We'll sell them a car. You should know how to sell people a car. But like, now how do you deal with these out-of-state people? And that's why I love MapSign, because it's like it's the missing piece to the question that a lot of people ask me, and I'm not in the market to teach people how to walk through this in detail.
Russ, we got a question from Greg Hall asking about thoughts on the single point of contact approach and like that success. And what have I assume you've seen some dealers doing that. What are you there on how that would
So I did it and hated it, but I think, and I actually always want my mind changed. So I was having a conversation with a gentleman. I said, can someone convince me this isn't a bad idea? Because at my dealership, I couldn't get past 20 cars. And turns out my dealership just had a terrible process. I mean, we're manually printing 90% of it. There was no way to push things over. Route 1, dealer track, MV forms, all printed, double signatures, triple signatures. And I've talked to some people where there are salespeople doing 40 cars a month, start to finish. Well, they like click a button and have an iPad. Yeah, if I had that, I would have loved single point of contact. Now, here's why I really don't like single point of contact. And I think it can be scaled. Now I know that it can be scaled out for higher volume. I still would love to see somebody change this argument. I'm a salesperson. I'm selling Rudy a car, and I'm doing the whole thing start to finish. Rudy has told me from the minute I shook his hand, it's $500 a month, and I just closed him a deal at $550 a month, and he moaned and groaned the entire time that he didn't want to go over $500, and I, by the skin of my teeth, approved him at $550. I do not think 90% of people could have as strong as an F&I pitch as the F&I guy who has no clue that Rudy wanted to be 500.
Gotcha. So some kind of way to get that extra pass to get the products when you like stretch them as far as they can.
I mean, just think human nature. I'm with Rudy for 3 hours, 500, 500, 500. I open him up at 600. We land at 500 due to money down and a little bit more money here and term, whatever. And I just heard 500. And now I'm about to come out and tell him it's 675 if he wants to get the warranty, the gap in the tire and wheel. And he says no one time. And I go in the back of my head, yeah, I figured I was never going to get that sale. And I'm just happy I sold a car anyways. That's how I'm getting paid. This back end stuff's great. But I got where the F&I guy's like, no, I didn't get paid for them to sell that car. My money's on this sheet of paper or my iPad. I got to get this deal done. And they're going to fight harder. And I just think that is human nature. I don't think many people could argue that, but I'd love to see statistics speaking otherwise, because as I said, I'm not opposed to ever having my mind changed if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some industry stats out there you can do. If you go look at, again, I use Carvana as a benchmark because they don't have any people involved and they do sell products with their transactions. So you can at least, I think they sell 3 products and they do it kind of on every deal. So you can kind of see what their rates are from a revenue perspective. So I think maybe Greg's got a point, like, is the spot process that you are presenting products with the regular price of the car, when you're doing your initial presentation, or are you saying, okay, now we agree on the price of the car, and now we're going to talk about F&I products?
And it's like, what is Carvana's process that no dealership can ever emulate the way they current model is it is the exact same thing every time. Exact. Right. It's because there's no human involved. So there's no, I was sick last night. I was partying last night. This guy's kind of scary. I don't even want to present product. He might yell at me. Carvana's digital product process doesn't care about any of that. It's just the same thing every single time, asking everyone the same questions with the same and I've never actually bought a car from Carvana, but I've been through the process. It's just the same thing every time. And you can't scale that out with people.
Yeah, and that's the answer I was going to, like, in my, I'm not sure. I think Greg's probably asking you and not me, but my opinion and over my career in auto since '01 is the challenge, the answer to the SPOC process, the single point of contact, and its success is 100% dependent on your willingness to commit to that process. So it's like, as soon as you say, oh, well, I'm going to make an exception. It's same thing with one price dealers, like you were at Long Lewis, right? I know those guys. And they drilled it in my head. As soon as you make an exception to that process for one person, then then it's lost all credibility. So whatever that process is, like, stick to it, go all in. And then if it fails, ask yourself, was I fully committed? And I think, look, it's the same thing for how we prevent fraud. Like, we do it the same way every time, and we don't deviate, because as soon as we deviate, we know that's where the fraudster's looking. It's the same in F&I process, same in whether you're involving F&I or not, would be my answer. So thank you, Greg, for that question. So any other questions out there? I see a Facebook viewer asking for Russ to do a flip. I don't know. Oh, kidding.
Russ flips.
Yeah. So any other questions out there from the audience? And then obviously this will be clipped up and sent out for people to look at after the fact. Russ and MapSign work well together on, we feel like that's a great partnership. So we'll be continuing to try and educate and help y'all get out on the edge, compete with the disruptors, AKA the bad guys, in my opinion, and in more ways than one. And so we want to make this a positive for the industry and keep you guys from all this kind of risk that's growing in the market with deepfake AI. So Patrick says, talk to Pat. So I guess we got to go call Pat after this. Thank you, Pat Schrader. Well, folks, I think we've got a lot to talk about between now and NADA. Just to give you a couple of heads up, Russ is going to be with us at NADA on Wednesday of NADA. We'll be putting out more information on that. And if you're up for a little bit of fun, we have a very fun contest where we're going to actually bring you fraud cases. And as part of the game show, Russ will be helping us choreograph who can spot the fraud and who can't spot the fraud. So if you think you're pretty good and maybe you don't need MapSign, cool, come prove it to us. And we'll give you some fraud cases to review and with some real documents and some not real documents. And we'll be able to figure out who wins. And there'll be some fabulous prizes. Greg, doesn't it come down to asking if a given process aligns with core value? Absolutely. I agree. I would love to. Greg, I'm going to probably reach out to you after this and talk further, because it sounds like we got some interesting concepts to discuss with
Greg Hall is the most legendary person in automotive. Just I don't know if you know him. He's legendary.
He's legit. No, I'm excited Greg attended. We got some prestigious guests on here. So that's awesome. So Greg, I look forward to following up with you on this. But yes, NADA, we'll see you on Wednesday. We're going to have a Spot the Fraud game show with Russ. You will see us. Our next Fraudcast is going to be January 30th with George Saliva, and we're going to be talking about how he's fighting fraud up in New Jersey. So we were going to do it earlier, but the Eagles are still in the playoffs, so we figured I'd wait until that blows over. All right, folks. So look, I hope everybody has a great weekend and great selling. January is always a slow month, but it doesn't have to be if you don't think it should be. So let's go sell some cars. Look forward to seeing all of you at NADA. And again, if we can help, if Russ can help, please reach out. Follow us on mapsign.com and on our LinkedIn page, and we'll keep you up to date on all the fraudcasts and the weekly fraud articles that we do. So thank you to all. And as I always like to end it, be a maverick. Russ, be a maverick.
Be a maverick.